All right, everyone, we're just going to give, we're about 7 minutes to noon, so we're just going to give some time for other people to log in. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, we're excited. This is the first one of these that we're doing, and we hope to do one a month going forward. So I'm sure that 12 months from now, we'll seem better than we are today, but we're going to do our best. Right, Aaron?
Correct.
Aaron, can people interact with us?
Yeah, so the interaction will help through or go through the chat box, and I'll cover this a little bit more when people log in, but there is a questions box and then also a chat box, and the question box tends to work better. And Dale, I got a text that, oh, now you're okay. At first they couldn't see you, so they almost got lucky.
Hey, I'm the cute one in this group. Maybe we should have a poll. Who can hear us okay?
For the next one.
Interactive polls. Are we keeping people anonymous too, so they can ask questions without fear?
Yep, and I'll cover that.
You know, but we're going to sit here for 7 minutes and not saying anything. You got any jokes for me?
Not today. To brush up on them. I'd ask you that, but I don't want to hear your response. So
I heard one this morning. Said a guy walks into a bar with a frog on his head. And the frog said, just think that started out as a wart. That's pretty good right there. Come on, Aaron, top it.
About 4 minutes to noon, and again, we'll start at around noon, and maybe a minute or two after, let everyone log in. But I see we're getting people logging in right now, so.
You didn't like my joke.
I'm glad you logged in a minute later because you didn't miss that horrible joke Dale just told.
Oh, I can repeat it.
Please don't.
Too funny. We haven't hit our limit of 100 yet, so. So I got my Southwest shirt on so that, you know, looking the part.
So then I guess I should have my coat on since I'm in the Northwest.
Short sleeves. Hey, it snowed here yesterday, day before yesterday. This is iced tea. I'm going to point that out. We need 5 minutes of entertainment before we start, Aaron, because otherwise when people are logging in early, we got to.
Maybe we could play some like 70s music or something next time.
I can do that right now.
Please don't. We can play some hold music.
Yeah. This is
All right, we're T-minus about 3 minutes.
before we light this candle.
Sure.
people can read my computer screens off of my glasses if I'm not careful. It'll be backwards. It's like they're looking through it in the rearview mirror.
That's why we like playing cards against you, because we can tell what you have.
Yeah. So I see we have a question, Aaron.
Okay.
Where am I at?
Yep. You want to answer that?
I'm in Northwest Phoenix. We normally visit our clients down here 1 or 2 times a year, and last fall we bought a house. Finally, we've been coming down here for about 13 years, so bought a house and we've been setting up the house. So right now, this is my office. It's kind of sparse. We got stuff we're doing in it, but it'll look better later.
You got to put some pictures of your grandkids up on the back wall or something.
Those are all in the front room. That's where everybody else goes. We put up 11 by 14 inch pictures of the grandkids taken by my daughters-in-law, because my sons-in-law didn't do it, or my sons didn't do it. And they came out pretty good. So they take up a lot of space, and they're the prominent feature in our living room.
Okay, for the everyone that just logged in, we're going to wait about 1 more minute, and then we're going to go ahead and start. And just so you guys know, again, I think depending on when you logged in, Dale alluded to this, but this is going to be something that we're going to be doing more regularly during this year, and they're going to be recorded. So if for some reason you sign up and can't make them, then please do sign up, because then you'll get a copy of the recording, because we're going to be recording them as well.
Yeah, we're encouraging the sign up part too. So.
Yep. All right. So, you know, we're a minute after the hour, so let's get started. So many of you know who we are, but just in case you don't, I'm Aaron, and Dale is the other moderator here. And we own a firm, TFS Advisors, and what we do is we help clients before and after retirement meet their goals. So what we're doing today is we're going to be talking about retirement and how to, before retirement, get set up so you're ready for retirement.
And the idea of this is that we wanted to create a safe space where people could ask questions that they might be thinking are too basic to ask normally, and ones that aren't too. But so this is designed to be a safe space. So we've set it up so people can be anonymous with just us on screen. And the idea is to try to field those questions and take it one step at a time with a different subject every time. So today we're talking about retirement. We help people in financial planning do a lot of things, and retirement's one of them. And we're gonna rotate the subject. Next month, we're gonna be talking about all the non-financial aspects of retirement. And one of the people that we've hired to help out with our clients is Pete Finland, and he's a retirement coach. He's a registered retirement coach. So he's going to be on the call with us next month and answering those non-financial questions. We'll probably touch on a couple of them today too, but that'll be fun.
As Dale said too, you know, the questions will be available to Dale and I. We encourage questions throughout this presentation, even if they're off topic of what we're currently talking about, so that we can incorporate them into this presentation, because this presentation is all for all the people logged in, right? We would love the interaction. We've had people submit questions before this presentation, so we'll go through those, you know, that people have submitted prior. And again, during the presentation, if you think about anything, even if it's off topic from what we're talking about at the time, please do put it in. If it has to do with your individual situation and it has to do with investments or anything like that, unfortunately, due to regulation, we can't answer that obviously on a group setting, nor would we probably want to, right? Because each person's situation is completely different. So we can set up a time to, you know, chat over the phone if you're a client, if you're not a client, just to talk through those different situations, and if it gets too in depth into the financial aspect of it.
Yeah, so we're working on more of they're financial topics because they're financial planning, but they're not investment specific questions. We can talk about general topics if you like, but any specific investment recommendations or anything that could be seen that way, we have to do that on a one-off basis. So.
Yep. And we've allocated an hour today. Some of them will go longer than an hour. Some of them will go less than an hour. It kind of just depends on how many questions we get. You know, we've got, like I said before, we have a handful of questions that we got prior, so we'll focus on those first. And then please make this interactive, you know, so that we can address any of your concerns. But one of the first questions that we had, Dale, are what are some important items to have in place prior to retirement?
Yeah, so you want to have, first of all, the financial plan we think is extremely important because it gives us kind of a roadmap as to where we're going to go. And in that financial plan, there are many segments of it. There are what happens if as a couple one passes away first, and what financial impact does that have? Legal issues, tax issues are in there. Then how do you set up an income stream? So that question is a really big question. But basically, I think from a standpoint there, and just, you know, say something else if you want to say something else, but I think having a great expectation of what your lifestyle is going to look like going into retirement is really important. And we recommend people try to live their retirement budget for a year before they actually pull the trigger, just to get a sense of how reasonable that retirement budget is. And we're not talking about, you know, having an austere retirement budget. We're talking about having the lifestyle that you really dream of, and what does that look like, and what do we have to change? So that's kind of the beginning of that question. I thought you were going to ask me for a joke again before you know, we got started.
I got enough of those before we actually started the presentation.
You don't like the frog joke?
No. So one of the things that I wanted to point out that Dale said is focusing on, you know, living your retirement budget, or we can, you know, use a different word than the B word, right? The budget word, to make sure that that's something realistic, because the financial plan is only as good as we make it. We can make the financial plan work 100% of the time if we put in numbers that aren't realistic, right? So that's why we talked about the importance of, you know, living off of your retirement budget prior to retiring, because it'll be a lot harder to get your job back once you've retired, especially at the level that you were at, to undo your retirement if you come to find out that, hey, you needed more income than what we had planned for.
Yeah, and that's a really good point too. The probability. One of the things people ask us for is to make sure and raise the red flag if there's a red flag that we see, because sometimes you don't see it. The other challenge is when we talk about the investment component of the financial plan, is that a lot of times people have never really managed a large sum of money, especially one that they're trying to live off of for the rest of their life. And yet we've done that a whole bunch of times. So we try to bring that expertise to the table and to set that up. And what does that look like?
So one of the items, I saw we had a participant raise their hand. One of the items, I don't recall if I covered at the beginning, is there is a chat box. So if you have questions throughout the presentation, if you don't mind typing them in that chat box or the questions box. So
well,
that
you said just the questions box before, not the chat box, right?
Yeah. Yep. So we have a question here, and let me expand this out because it is, there we go. So one of the questions that we can just pivot to, Dale, is what is your opinion on owning long-term care insurance versus self-funding? And I'll let you start, and I'll add.
So kind of a little bit of history. I've been doing this for 38 years now. When I started, long-term care insurance wasn't even in existence. So long-term care insurance per se is relatively, got a relatively short claims history. And so there's basically three groups of people. There's the group of people that have very limited funds and probably can't afford to pay through, 90 days of a long-term care facility. They exhaust their assets. And those are folks that Medicaid is meant for to try to help out. And the long-term care premium would probably be too much too. It's kind of a rule of thumb that says if the long-term care premium is more than 7% of your income, it's probably too expensive for you to pay for. The second group is the other end of the spectrum, group that has plenty of resources and just the earnings off of their the resources would cover a long-term care plan. And then at that point, the long-term care insurance or other ways to pay for the cost are optional. I mean, it's one of those things that if you don't mind using the earnings off of your assets to pay for the long-term care and you don't want to buy the insurance, that's your option. If you want to use the insurance to save some assets for your heirs, then that's another choice. So the group in between those two are the ones that we believe need some level of long-term care coverage to make sure that they have choices, is really what it is, in a situation where long-term care. Nobody wants to be in a long-term care facility, let's face it. Nobody wants to put a loved one into a long-term care facility, but if you have to, you want to make sure that you have the choice, that you find one that you like, that you think that the staff are great, that is maybe nearby, and all those choices, the range of what costs are pretty wide. So we think of long-term care insurance as a supplemental tool to your other resources. For example, if you can divert some income off of your assets to pay for long-term care, then use long-term care to supplement that number. So you think, does that answer that question, Aaron?
Yeah, I think that does. But I think the big topic is, the answer that probably no one wants to hear is as it depends, right, on the client situation, what the best route is, because we also, and I think Dale alluded to it, I don't know if he actually said it or not, is using it, he said using it as a supplemental tool, but meaning that, maybe it doesn't cover the whole cost of long-term care, but some of it. Another factor is if you have heirs or not, right? If there's somebody to set to inherit that money. But again, that's the long-term care question. That is something that we cover in the financial planning, as well as, life insurance, if it makes sense. We truly do holistic planning.
Yeah, so let me expand on that a little bit more, Aaron, because in the type of care that we see skilled care and custodial care. And skilled care is when you are going into a facility. Think of rehab. You broke a hip, you got to go in for rehab. You're going to be there for 6 months while you're getting stronger in rehab, and you've had surgery. That's skilled care. The requirements for who can run those kind of places are different than a custodial care. So in a custodial care setting, you're talking about the activities of daily living. That's the terms that people use, or cognitive issues. So activities of daily living are like walking, wheeling, transferring, getting from a bed to a chair or whatever else, dressing, bathing, etc. And there's 6 of them. I think I missed one. But and then the other side of that is cognitive care. So let's talk about the ADLs for a minute, activities of daily living. If I needed help getting a bath, for example, and for those of you who know me, I am not a shrinking violet. I'm a little bigger than the average bear. And my wife could not lift me if she wanted to. So I don't think she'd try. She'd just drag me around the floor probably. So she would need help in taking care of some of those issues just because of the difference in our size. And so that's one of those things people don't think of, where it's in-home care and maybe part-time in-home care for certain things. And then the other one, and the thing that just breaks our heart, is cognitive issues. You think of Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is just one of the cognitive issues that are out there. But when your mind goes, but your body is good, that can last a long time, and it's very expensive. And so I don't know, Aaron, what do we see in the cost in the Seattle area for cognitive issue, memory care kind of thing? 10 grand a month?
At least, yeah. I mean,
10 to 12
depending
grand
on
a
where
month.
you are. Yeah, Washington State is one of the more expensive states. There are more
Yeah.
expensive ones, but we're in the top tier as far as expense. And then there was a add-on question to that, as well as thoughts on the mandatory long-term care policy that the state of Washington makes you pay in starting next year. My thoughts on that is, again, that's as much as I know about it, that again is just a pool of money. It's not enough to get you by any long-term care stay, from what I know about it. But the thing that makes us different, I think, at TFS is we're not here trying to be the expert in all different fields. So when we do long-term care, the way our client base is structured is we intentionally keep our client base small on purpose, because we want to be able to give and understand all of our clients' needs versus having thousands of clients. So what we do is we make relationships with experts in different fields, such as long-term care. You know, we hire other people. And I said hire, I mean, we bring in other people when those long-term care questions come up, depending on what product it is. So again, we're not trying to be the expert in every field.
And Medicaid is a combination of state and federal money. And I would guess that that plan, I'm not real familiar with it at this moment, honestly, but I would guess that that plan is more to help offset the costs Medicaid incurs. So
yeah,
I wouldn't expect it to be a Cadillac plan by any means.
Yeah, this is a little different, but that question, it's off of Medicaid. But please continue the questions. You know, this is really, really helpful. I'm going to go back to another one that we had, is how do you come up with the income you will need in retirement, and the different strategies, you know, from going from living off of your paycheck to living off of your assets.
So, by the way, I don't know everything. I just tell Aaron I do, so he doesn't keep asking me questions all the time. But one of the challenges in the transition financially is that people think, let's just make the math easy and say, I have a salary of $100,000, and I'm putting away 20% to 401k, and people think that you have to have $100,000 in retirement income to match their lifestyle. But let me go through the math a little bit first. So if you have $100,000 and you're putting 20,000 away, that means 20,000 is going to retirement savings. Now you have $80,000, but you don't have $80,000 because you had to pay payroll taxes, Social Security, Medicare taxes on your entire $100,000, and that's 7.65%. So on $100,000, that's another $7,650.
Dale, keep it at a high level, because it's a little hard to follow when we don't have a drawing or something to go with.
I can start drawing if you want. No. Okay, so big picture then, and that if your income is now only, let's say $73,000, your federal income tax is going to be lower too. So in reality, you could probably have a reduction in your retirement income from 100,000 down to 70,000 in that scenario, and feel absolutely no difference in your lifestyle, because once you're retired, you're no longer saving for retirement. Once you're retired and living off of your assets, you're not being charged payroll taxes on that, because it's not payroll. So so then we look at those things and we say, what do we need to have a lifestyle? Then what's our lifestyle questions? When we look at our plan, we look at, you know, needs, wishes, and wants, and we prioritize things. So the things that are highest priorities, obviously, is having the baseline income, and then being able to travel if that's what you want, or spend time with the grandkids or your charities or what have you. And we start adding those things up, and then we look at that. Now we know what the income needs to be. We know what the tax implications could be on that, make some assumptions. And then we say, okay, now what other income sources do we have? Income source could be, if you're lucky enough to have a pension, it could be a pension. It could be money from your Social Security. So these are things that you only get as an income. Maybe you have a contract sale for real estate or some other form of an ongoing monthly payment. So we subtract those things from the need that you have for income, and then we look at that difference. Let's say you had 70,000 as the goal. We got 30,000 of income sources. That leaves $40,000 of income need that needs to be generated from your portfolio. And then Aaron and I set up strategies to make that happen, assuming that the resources are there, of course.
Yep.
Aaron?
Yep. And I was answering a question too, so online. So also, I don't know if we can structure the income anyway. We can do it, if you're used to getting checks bi-weekly, we can set it up bi-weekly. We can set it up monthly. We can set it up quarterly, annually. We can set it up so to a way that you're used to. So let's jump on to another question. One of them was, I anticipate outliving my spouse. How do I plan for longevity and solo living during late retirement?
Have you talked to mom about this?
Party? No.
So the title of our Q&A today is Becoming the CFO of Your Household. Becoming the CFO of your household could mean that you weren't the person taking care of the money and all of a sudden you're thrust into that role. And that can happen because of a divorce or a death. It can also happen because of a cognitive issue or something like that, where all of a sudden you have to be the one handling the money and the funds and the relationships. So I got off on a track. What was the question again, Aaron? I lost track of what I was saying.
So I anticipate outliving my spouse.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
How do I plan for longevity and solo living during late retirement?
So it's an easy thing to fall into a trap, and that is that, let's say that you have a spouse that has a terminal illness or has an illness serious enough that you expect a limited lifespan. It's an easy trap to get into, to just spend because it's the last thing that you're going to be able to do together, and then end up as the solo person with limited resources. We see this also when people, out of the kindness of their heart, want to help their kids. And they want to help their kids so much that they jeopardize their own retirement. So if we, right now we know this, the odds are that a man and a woman the same age, that the woman will outlive the man by about 7 years. That's just longevity. If there's a difference in age, if the woman is younger, it's going to be a longer period of time. If there's a health issue that is an underlying health issue, then that's a factor that we expect that to happen. We plan that one person is going to outlive the other person by a significant piece. Now, we have people that we've had that are clients that have been married 60 years, and it's not uncommon to see one pass shortly after the other one. But what we plan for is an extended period for the survivor, because that's a more conservative way to view it. So in doing so, we want to set aside assets. We want to make sure that we don't overspend while we're trying to create memories with the person that's sick. We want to make sure that we have other income, and some income is going to go away. So Aaron, why don't you talk about how Social Security works in a situation like that?
Yeah, so the way Social Security works in that situation is you basically lose the lower of the two benefits, okay? It doesn't matter if it's the husband's or wife, but the surviving spouse basically gets the higher amount. And Social Security does not do that automatic. That's something that you have to then alert them to, hey, this happened, and please adjust my Social Security to reflect the higher amount if you're not the one already getting it, right? And they also do have what they call a death benefit, and it's very insignificant. I think it's like $250 that you would have to give a death certificate to. And then also, if you don't alert them, it will take a couple months for them to actually figure it out with the death records. Then you might end up having to back pay benefits that they paid out on a deceased spouse. So just keep that in mind. You know, that's something that we bring up in conversation when, you know, we know that's happening. Social Security, we can probably, that it would not surprise me if later on in the year that might be one of our topics, one of our Q&A sessions for Social Security, because we could spend hours on Social Security, right? So
one other issue with regards to that, though, Aaron, that what Aaron said is absolutely correct, but where people get confused sometimes, as if both parties have qualified for their own benefit and that become duly entitled, it's called. And so if the effect of what happens is exactly what Aaron said, if you factor into two numbers, you basically lose the smaller amount. So if you're both making the same income, one goes away, that means you would lose 50% of your survivor benefit or 50% of your Social Security benefit. If one person hasn't qualified enough and is working off of a spousal benefit, only worked in the home the whole time, so didn't have Social Security wages, then the spousal benefit is about half of what the worker's benefit is, and so you lose that. So when that happens, you lose a third of the amount you've been getting. So you lose between a third and a half of whatever your Social Security benefit is when the first death happens. So we plan for that. We factor that in.
And there's a bunch of different variables to that too, because it's slightly different if, you know, if your spouse passes away at an earlier age, there's different filing strategies, you know, but that's more on a case-by-case basis. Again, it would not surprise me later on on this year that we do one that's specifically just Social Security benefits. One of the sayings that I've heard, and I just absolutely love, and it goes back to the question where Dale said, sometimes we have clients out of the kindness of their heart, you know, trying to help their kids, but it's at their own detriment of retirement, is I heard this saying, and it says, you can go out and you can get financing for college, but no one will ever lend you money for your own retirement. So I just heard that saying and it rang true. And of course that's a balancing act, but I never forgot that saying after I heard it.
And then there's another saying that people have said to us, that my kids will help take care of me if that's needed. And my question to them always is, have you asked them? I asked Aaron if he would take care of me, and he says that my rent would be double his mortgage payment. So, you know, I don't know if that's going to work. And I'd have chores.
No,
so
that was if you wanted to live with me.
Well, what would happen if you'd be taking care of me? I'd be living in your garage.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's a real important thing. And Aaron said one other note with the Social Security, and that is strategies. There used to be a lot of different strategies that you've probably heard of at some point, and most of those have been eliminated. So even if it was there, you know, 6 years ago, if you're just now claiming Social Security benefits, most of those strategies are gone, right, Aaron?
Well, yep, excluding the survivor benefits. They did not change the survivor benefits. There are still some pretty significant planning strategies around widow/survivor benefits.
Aaron's had specialized Social Security training, so that's why we rely on him for a lot of this information.
Okay, so another question, you know, along the same lines is, how should my spouse and I structure our financial accounts so that I maintain access should I live longer than he does? So again, that can get pretty involved. Maybe let's try to keep it high level.
Yeah, I apologize for my cough. I'm about 3 weeks out of having COVID myself, so one of the things is a lingering cough. I'm okay. I only got the mild symptoms, but I still get a lingering cough from that. So how should I structure my finances? Well, on a joint account, if you have a joint account with your spouse, you can access the joint account, you know, beyond a spouse having an issue or not being able to do business with it. If you don't have joint accounts, which we happen to like, we have some people that keep their finances separate, And we come from the standpoint that we like to have them combined. Washington State's a community property state anyway, so that's kind of part and parcel for what's going on there. But joint accounts are one of those things. Having the power of attorney, a durable power of attorney, this getting into legal questions, I don't want to get too deep into it, but having a durable power of attorney, and maybe, Aaron, one of our topics can be having an attorney on answering some of those kinds of questions more specifically and giving that legal input. But joint accounts tend to work. And Aaron, have you seen anything from other things that we've been doing where a spouse wasn't accessible to an account while the other spouse was either disabled or what have you? I mean, anything else?
No, not while they're still living. The only thing I've seen is after they pass, of course. Let's say the deceased spouse had the IRA account and the spouse was listed as the beneficiary. That takes the movement of that money into the surviving spouse's name can take some time because of death certificate and all that stuff. So that's the only, but unfortunately, there's no real way around that. There's nothing you can do different to alleviate that, at least on an IRA account, except the fact of, having money, locally. We always recommend people have an emergency fund, and maybe that's the time to use those assets. That
brings up a couple of other thoughts, actually. One, Aaron brought up this idea with the IRAs. In an IRA, especially if the spouse is the beneficiary, after a death, using the death certificate, which takes a little time to get, the spouse can take on that IRA as if it was always their own. And that's important because there's some IRA distribution rules if you're not a spouse, and we can address those later. Joint tenant with rights of survivorship. Joint tenant is a normal way people register their checking accounts and even investment accounts and other things. And what it does is it says the survivor gets access to all the money automatically. And one of the topics for the attorney can be in that is that if you have a trust set up or you have some other legal documents set up, you can kind of blow those up because of having the wrong ownership interests in your accounts and by having the wrong beneficiaries as well. So we also do, as part of our planning process, we do an ownership and beneficiary audit to make sure that your accounts, even a CD at the bank can have a beneficiary statement. It's a transfer. It's called TOD, transfer on death, is the way it's called. So you can have a beneficiary statement that completely blows up your estate planning docs, and so it's important to make sure those work together. And I think that was one of the questions too, Aaron, that came up, and that is, who should I have on my team, really, right?
Yep. That was the next question after this one that I was going to bring up, is who do you need in your corner along with yourself as your personal CFO? So what other professionals do we see that people possibly need?
So when you think of these, I bet most of you can come up with these professionals. People like your attorney, like your CPA. If you are changing houses, you might have a realtor. You might have a mortgage person. You probably have somebody that does your homeowners and auto insurance, or property and casualty, it's called. You might even have a life insurance provider. There's lots of parties that have specialized knowledge. One of the keys that is important in a financial planning process, and as a CFP and Aaron's working on CHFC, is that we get involved in a lot of those areas where we're not meant to be your tax advisor, we're not meant to be your legal advisor, but what we are and can be is your quarterback. We can be that person that you go to, and excuse me, I'm getting somebody that's trying to get hold of me on my phone. you can be that person that, we can be that person that you go to that helps you understand what the other professionals are even saying. A lot of times the attorneys are funny to be able to give you 2 or 3 options and you don't really know which one to choose, and they seem to be reluctant oftentimes to make a recommendation. CPAs can be the same way sometimes, and so having somebody that's a good quarterback that can communicate and know your situation well and be involved, you know, it's like we'll go back to the beneficiary and ownership audit that we talk about. You know, if you wait for your attorney to continually remind you to change the ownership and beneficiaries to support the documents that he just did for you or she just did for you, they're going to charge you based on an hourly rate, anything from probably $200 to $400 an hour. If we have it as part of our normal financial planning process, there's no extra charge to do it. This is why they like it, because it also gets done. But that's part of the quarterback process. And we don't need to be the quarterback. We don't require it to be the quarterback, but we find ourselves in that role a lot of times.
Yeah.
Say, Aaron?
Yep, I would say that. And so I'm going to ask this other question. I think you answered a lot of it, but if you wanted to add anything to it, if I have all of these people, how do we make sure they work in concert? And I think that goes to the quarterback conversation you were having.
Yeah, it's common for Aaron and I to be talking to clients' attorneys and their CPAs. In fact, for those that want it, we will work with the CPAs near the end of the year to offer up what looks like projected dividend capital gain distributions, so that there's an opportunity to do any tax planning at the end of the year, and then we'll support it with the actual numbers in the spring. But you know, we're pretty well versed in what the attorneys need, what the CPAs need, and the kind of questions to ask them. So again, we won't be your legal or your tax advice, but we can offer up pretty good questions to ask, and we will go to those meetings with our clients if necessary as well, if that's more comfortable. Yeah. Does that answer that?
Yeah, it does. So, and then we got a question in the chat as well. I'm getting many different opinions on the Roth conversion. Your thoughts? And so let me answer that, and then Dale, you can chime in after. So a Roth conversion.
Can you say it one more time?
Yeah, I'm getting many different opinions on the Roth conversions. What are your thoughts? So again, let me answer that, and then Dale, you can add something in if at the end. So Roth conversions, honestly, it depends on a case-by-case basis. Like most financial advice, there's not just, you know, one scenario where this makes sense for every single person, right? So we would have to figure out more about the situation before we're able to answer that question, just because, again, that's getting into that investment advice stuff that we're talking about at the top of the hour, where unfortunately, it's one of those questions that we just can't give blanket advice on, and we have to know more about your personal situation to give you good advice.
Yeah, and the big picture general idea of the conversion is to take money out of an IRA, put it into an account that's never taxable after that. And the challenge with doing that is that you get the best bang for your buck typically if you pay the taxes, because we pull money out of the IRA, it's going to be taxable. So when you pay the taxes out of an account that's not the IRA, because that allows you to convert the most money, to put the most money in a non-taxable environment. So having that separate account isn't required for it, but it's a factor. The second part of that is, what's your current tax bracket? And how much, if we pull 100,000 out of an IRA to convert it, you're going to add 100,000 to your taxable income that year. So how does that impact your tax picture, and does that change the bracket that you're in, and some of those things? That's why this is an individual question. And kind of the last thing is that what we see from people is that they want to use that Roth, you know, as the last money they get to, because in order to really see the benefit of it, it kind of has to be there and compound for a while. you can still get a benefit from it, but the best benefit is after it's compounded for a long time. So a lot of people are using that Roth type asset as an inheritance even, or they're expecting it to be in that converted Roth for 10 to 15 years or more. And so if you start a Roth conversion when you're 70, that probably limits the amount of time you're going to be able to be drawn from it. So.
And the other factor too, that is a more recent factor that comes into play with the new Tax Cut and Jobs Act, is that it depends honestly who's set to inherit your IRA account, because it used to be that your beneficiary could, take the money out over a lifetime, and now it's out, if it's not a spouse, it's out over a 10-year period. So that's another factor that we would want to explore a little bit more before the Roth conversions. There are definite times that Roth conversions make sense and definite times where they don't make sense, but it's more on an individual basis.
There's one other factor that's involved, and that is if you're charitably inclined. If you're charitably inclined, you have the ability to send your required minimum distribution, which now, by the way, starts after age 72. You are able to take that and send that charitable required minimum distribution to a charitable entity and have it never included in your taxable income in the first place. So it's not a situation where you have to include the taxable income and then you get a deduction. It actually never hits your tax return in the first place. So the other side of that coin is that if you've got a substantial wish for charity and your IRA is only part of your estate, give your IRA to charity, because then it's never taxed. You've never had to convert it. It's never taxed. Best bang for the buck, because the estate will be able to get the tax deduction as dollar for dollar, and they're never taxed on an estate level or an income level. So that's another option for that too.
Yep. So that was a lot of the questions that we had come in. Again, if you have more, please do not hesitate to ask them through the chat. We really appreciate everyone joining us today. Again, these are recorded, so if there was a topic or something that we covered that you want to learn a little bit more about, or you just want to re-listen to it, that we will be sending a recording out at the end. It will probably go out tomorrow or Saturday, depending upon the time frame of when the internet decides to give us a recording. So.
Hey, we are really excited about doing this. We've talked about doing this for a while. Of course, COVID has made all of us a lot more virtual these days, and we prefer face-to-face, three-dimensional relationships. But when we can't do that, this has been a good option. And so we've been learning over this last year how to use this medium, and we've still got a lot to learn. But we're excited to be able to do this to start with, and we're hoping to bring topics that are relevant, that really ring true for you going forward. But remember, the next month we've got non-financial aspects of retirement planning from a retirement coach. That's a certified retirement coach, and he's helped me think through some things. We've also had him do evaluations on clients when wanted, etc. So it's kind of exciting to be able to do that. Pete Finnan has been somebody we've known now for 3 years, I think. Right, Aaron? Is that right?
Yep.
And the second thing is that when you get the recording, you will also get our contact information as part of that. And so if you want to reply to that, or you want to get a hold of us, you have any specific questions, feel free to send those off as well, and then we'll answer those on a one-off basis and get a phone call together, or if email's better or whatever works, we'll do that. But the idea with this is, again, a safe space. Tell your friends about it. We would love to continue to expand the followers, if you will, if that's the right term. I don't know what those things are. But
don't start talking about Twitter or something.
You can like this, but
yeah.
Yeah, no, we're excited to be able to offer this. We're doing it as a community service type of a thing. So hopefully you've had some questions answered today that were helpful.
Yep. Thank you guys so much. I don't see any more questions that have come in. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, look forward to having many more of these. And if you think of topics, please please do not hesitate to email, and we'll get them incorporated.
Sorry you have 17 minutes you have to fill on your own, but you know. You want to hear the frog joke?
No, I'll end the meeting for everybody. I'll do us all a favor.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you.